What's up nerds, my name is Abdul Nafe and welcome back to a brand new video. And in this one we're going to be learning how to make this amazing 3D render. Now this tutorial is made for Blender beginners who have very little experience inside of Blender 3D. However, you will be expected to know the basics like navigating the viewport, using the move tool, rotate tool, using the edit mode, etc. And as far as Unreal Engine is concerned, again you just need to know the basics like how to move stuff, how to navigate the viewport, and you don't need to actually create your own materials because we're going to be using a pre-made material pack. And even if you are an experienced user, you will still find this tutorial very helpful because it's filled with small useful tips and tricks. Apart from that, I'm going to be showing you my whole 3D workflow including modeling, importing any models, texturing, lighting, and rendering. So if you want to take your Blender skills to the next level, then this class is definitely for you. See you in class. Also, by the way guys, if you want inspiration or ideas for your future 3D projects, then be sure to follow me on Instagram at Nafe3D. I post all my 3D work there, and on my stories I post my process and sometimes short tutorials on how to make the stuff that I make. Recently I made this 3D forest inside of Unreal Engine 5. And apart from that, yeah, just be sure to follow me over there, and you will also get notified whenever I post a new Skillshare class or a longer format course. And apart from that, if you want feedback on your art or you want to give feedback on my art, then be sure to DM me or comment on any of my posts and I'll be more than happy to respond to you. And apart from that, yeah, let's start the video. Alright guys, so we are inside the beautiful world of Blender 3D, and here we're going to be creating that amazing chess scene which you saw in the intro. So yeah, without any further ado, let's start. So first of all, I'm just going to get rid of everything, select all and delete. Just save your project, by the way. So we're going to be starting with making the chess pieces. Now we're going to be making, we're obviously not going to be making all the pieces because that's just going to take too long, and they're not going to be visible in the scene either. So we're going to be making a pawn and the king, right? So the two most important chess pieces in my opinion. So what I did was I found two references. We have two references, one for the pawn and the other for the king. So here you go, this is the reference king. I'm just going to zoom in. This is the king and this is the pawn. So what we're going to be doing is that we're going to be starting with the pawn first. So I'm just going to drag this in Blender, and now you're going to see that the rotation and position are messed up. The position seems to be fine, but the rotation is messed up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Alt G to reset the position, location, and Alt R to reset the rotation. Now you're going to see that it's flat, and that's exactly how we want. However, we want it to be vertical and facing this way, right? So we want it to face this way. So I'm just going to press R, X, and 90. Now what I just did was I rotated it, and I'm just going to be doing it again. R to rotate it, X to lock it to X axis, and 90 degrees to rotate it exactly 90 degrees, right? Or you can obviously just use this rotation tool, just hold control so that it's rotating in increments of 5, and just make sure on the top left hand side you're going to see rotation 90 degrees, and when that is 90 degrees just left click. So yeah, RX90 works for me. So apart from that, I'm going to be doing RZ and 90, which is going to rotate it 90 degrees in the Z axis, the same exact procedure. So now we're going to be starting the modeling. Now what we're going to be doing is that we're going to be, first of all, I think this is way too large. I think something like that should be a good scale. Maybe something like that. Yeah. So I'm just going to be moving it up in the Z axis, something like that. And now let's go to these image settings. So object data properties. And we're going to be going to the opacity, and we're going to be reducing the opacity, right? So I think 0.3 should be good. Something like that should be good. Now what we're going to be doing is that we're going to be starting from the top. So we're going to be adding a sphere, add mesh and sphere, UV sphere. And I'm just going to be scaling it down and making sure that it matches. It somewhat matches the size of the head of the pawn. I think something like that should be good. I'll just turn on the X-ray mode because we're going to be using that. I'm going to be telling you the reason why in just a second. Something like that should be a good position. So the reason why we're using using X-ray mode is because if I tap into edit mode, if I press tab to go into edit mode, and if I select all of them, you're going to see that only half of them are going to be selected because we can't really see the ones behind. Okay, but if I turn on the X-ray mode now, if I select all of them, you're going to see that all of them are going to be selected. So that's exactly what we want. And what we're going to be doing is that let's go ahead and select these vertices and let's delete them. Right? So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to be selecting all these, this bottom row, and we're going to be extruding them in the Z axis. So press E to extrude and press Z to lock it to Z axis. Something like that should be good. I'm going to extrude it again in the Z axis. Something like that, and now scale it up to match the reference. Now we're just going to be tracing the reference, and it's going to be pretty easy. E and Z again. So this is just some basic reference modeling. just tracing over the reference, scale it down. Actually, I'm going to be scaling something like that, and I'm going to be moving it up a little in the z-axis, and then I'm going to be extruding it again, and let's just do this. Yeah, perfect. So next I'm just going to be pressing E and Z again. Let's extrude it, something like that, and again. Now it doesn't have to be super accurate, but just try to match your reference as closely as possible. Now here you're going to see that it's not actually matching our reference, and to fix that, what we're going to do is that we can just get out of our edit mode, just press tab to do that, select our image, and we're going to be moving, let's just turn the extra mode off for a minute, press G and then Y, and just move it in the y-axis slightly so that it matches our pawn a bit better, something like that. And let's just continue with our process. Let's do this, let's do that, and I'm just going to be doing it something like that. Now here you're going to see that it's not actually perfectly matching, that is because this picture was taken from an actual camera, therefore it has perspective, so it's not totally horizontal. But yeah, we're going to be dealing with that in just a second. So let's just bring it down and scale it up, something like that. Extrude it down, scale it up even more, extrude it down again, and this time scale it down a little, something like that. Extrude it down, and then again, and this time you're going to be scaling it up quite a bit to match this bottom bulge. Let's just move it a little up, down, something like that. And you're going to see that we're matching it pretty closely. However, obviously it's not perfect because this is an actual photo and not a 3D render, so obviously doing it perfectly is not going to be possible. Anyway, so I'm just going to be moving it. Okay, so for this, what we can do is that we can just pull it down, something like that, and then we can just select this whole area. So we can just press E to extrude and press S to scale up, and then we can press Shift Z to lock it to the X and Y axis only and prevent it from scaling up in the Z axis. So something like that is what we want. Now you're going to see that it looks like a pawn. Yeah, it looks pretty close to a pawn. However, obviously it's very blocky and it's very chunky, so we're going to be fixing that with a subdivision surface modifier. Alright, so let's go into the modifier menu and add a modifier, the subdivision surface modifier. Now you're going to see that it's pretty smooth, and we do want it to be like that, but it's a little too smooth for us, right? So what we're going to be doing is that we're going to go to the front view. Let's go to the edit mode again and start adding loop cuts. Okay, now I'm just going to add a loop cut right here to give it like some thickness. I think something like that should be good, or maybe even a loop cut right there as well to tighten up that edge. I think something like that should be good for the top, and for the bottom I think it's looking pretty good actually. Oh, never mind. Just add a loop cut right there to make this, to give it a little more definition. Maybe one right there to make it sharper as well. Now you can just take help from your reference, but I would not suggest copying it too precisely, because then where's your own creativity then? I would suggest you to be creative yourself. Okay, so this bottom part I want it to be pretty sharp, so I'm just going to add a loop cut right there and one right there as well. Perfect. Now you're going to see that this bottom is not actually covered. It does not have a face. So to fix that, what we're going to be doing is that we're going to go to edit mode. We're going to be alt clicking any of these lines, any of these points to select the whole line. So I'm just going to press right here, alt, and press it. So you're going to see that it's going to select the whole what do you call it, the whole row, the whole loop. And now if you press this F, you're going to see that it's going to just fill it in, F for fill. And you're going to see that it's still a little blocky. However, the shape seems pretty nice to me. I'm just going to bump up the segments, bump up the levels of the subdivision surface to 2. I think it's pretty good looking now, and just shade it smooth. So that is perfect. Cool. So yeah, it's not perfect here, and one thing which we can do which might fix it. To do that, what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to go down to this object data properties, this menu, and let's go to normals and auto smooth. Now if I turn this on, you're going to see that the way it works is a little complicated, but you can just set this angle, and the default 30 just works perfectly fine, and it gets rid of those weird shading issues which you get sometimes. So, but since this is a beginner's tutorial, I'm not really going to explain how it actually works. But yeah, just turn this on and see if it fixes your problems. And yeah, it did. So apparently our pawn is basically complete, and let's move on to the next shape, which is going to be our king. So I'm going to select this. Actually, let's just name this sphere. I'm going to name it pawn, and this is going to be ref pawn, reference of pawn. And I'm going to select both of those, and I'm going to press M, and I'm just going to click this move to new collection, and we can just move it to a new collection, and let's name it pawn. Press OK. Now you're going to see it's going to create a group, it's going to create a collection in which we have these two things, so we can just hide them individually, hide them all together. But I'm just going to select all of them, and I'm going to be pressing G and Y and moving it right there. Perfect. So now our pawn is basically complete. Let's move on to our next shape, which is going to be the king. So I'm just going to drop the reference king. By the way, I'm going to be attaching both of these references in the project section of this class, so you can be sure to, so you can feel free to download them and use them. Yeah, cool. So I'm just going to be dropping that in. Let's do the same exact thing, Alt G and Alt R, and I'm going to be pressing R, X and 90, and R, Z and 90 as well to rotate it. Perfect. So now I'm going to be scaling it down, obviously. Let's place it right here, just let's see to get an idea of the scale, because a pawn, a king is a little larger than a pawn. I think something like that might be good. A little smaller, maybe. Something like that might be good. Perfect. Or maybe even a little larger. Something like that. Yeah, that's perfect. That's the perfect size. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to be selecting this and moving it over. Okay, so the basic mesh, we can copy it. We can copy the basic mesh from this pawn as well, and then we can just make changes to it. So I'm just going to press Shift D and Y to copy it, duplicate it. From you duplicate things by pressing Shift D, and then we're going to be moving it to something like that. So we've just locked it to the Y-axis, and I'm going to be pressing Tab to go into the extra mode. And now let's start shaping this out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be deleting the top part, because it's going to be totally different. And let's actually start moving these and placing them where they should be. Something like that. Something like that should be good. Let's move this out. Oops. Let's press G and Y. Oh, sorry, Z. Something like that should be good. Same with this. And same exact thing with this as well. Let me just move it here and let's scale it up a little. And this whole thing, I'm going to be moving this up. GZ. Let's move it up. And obviously we're going to scale it up as well to match the shape of that king. And let's move these up as well. Oops. Press G and Z. Move something like that, and obviously scale it up. But we're going to be moving it down a little as well, because we want to copy the shape of this king as closely as we can. Let's select this and let's scale it up a little. So you're going to see that it's starting to look like an actual king. Not an actual king, a chess king. But yeah, you get the point. Let's actually select all of this. Let's move it a little up. And then let's just scale it up. Something like that. I'm just going to be scaling this up as well. Let's move it a little down. Something like that. And do the same exact thing with this as well. Move it a little down. Something like that. And of course we're going to be taking this one as well. Scaling it up. Move it up. And now one thing which we can do to select all these is that we can just alt click these, this line right here, and we can just scale this up as well. Actually, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be taking this part, all this, and I'm going to be moving it up. And let's take, let's actually select this part, so not that line right there. And I'm going to be pressing S and Shift Z to lock it to the X and Y axis. And I'm going to be pressing, I'm going to be scaling it up like that. Let's see how it actually looks. I think it looks pretty good. The only thing which I'm a little concerned about is this area is a little too small. I'm just going to be scaling it up, something like that, so that it looks natural. And yeah, one other thing which we have in our reference is that the king, for the king, the bottom of this piece is not that tight. So I'm just going to be pressing Alt and selecting this, and I'm going to be pressing G and Z, and I'm going to be moving it down slightly, and this one as well. Press Alt and select that, press G and Z and move it up, so that we have a more rounded shape. Now the bottom you're going to see is looking pretty much like a king. However, we have this issue right here, so let's actually see what the issue is, and let's try to fix it. So you're going to see that we have, okay, so we have this weird issue right here, in which these are being connected for some reason. I have no idea why that is, but let's actually try to solve this problem. So let's actually go to the edge select mode. Let's select this edge, and let's try to select similar, and I did amount of faces around an edge. So you're going to see all these are going to be selected, and we're going to be pressing delete and edges. So once you delete the edges, you're going to see that those issues are going to be fixed, and those basically extra vertices, which I don't know where did they come from, but wherever they came from, we have now fixed them. And yeah, that is a part of 3D modeling. You should be able to solve problems and like come up with solutions. And yeah, I had no idea how to fix that, and I just did it in front of you guys. So just to show you that everything you do in 3D modeling is not actually planned, and there are some things which are unexpected as well. So yeah, I hope that's a good lesson for you guys. Oops, I did not mean to do that. I'm just going to select this line right here, that one, and let's scale it up a little bit, something like that. And let's scale this up as well. Never mind, that does not look good. I'm just going to be undoing that. I think this looks pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good. And now what I'm going to be doing is that, okay, so we don't have points up there. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be selecting the points, and I'm going to be selecting all of them, and I'm going to be deleting them, vertices. And let's just start from here. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, by the way, just save your project, because I don't want you to lose this all this progress. And let's extrude it up, something like that. Now let's just oops, never mind. Let's just tab out of edit mode, and let's turn this on, and let's position our reference a little better so that it's symmetrical. Go back to edit mode, and we're going to be extruding it a little up, and then a little up as well. And this one, actually I'm just going to be extruding it a little less, something like that. And I'm going to be selecting this whole thing, and let's press E, S and Shift Z to extrude it, but only in the X and Y axes, something like that. And I'm going to be selecting these inside edges and extrude them up, something like that, and then extrude them up again, and let's extrude them up again, once again, something like that, and one final time here. So what we're doing with this is, by the way, let me just move this a little up, and the way you move vertices up is by pressing double G. So it's just gonna move the vertices over the vertices without messing the points. So let's do the same exact thing with this. Oops, E, S and Shift Z, something like that. I think that should be good. And the same exact thing with this as well. E, S, Shift Z, and perfect. So this is a little too inside. I'm just going to be going to the edge select mode, and I'm going to be selecting all these edges. Let's just scale them up a little, something like that. Oops, I think I should, yeah, I should press S and Shift Z so that it's not scaling up in the Z axis. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. It looks pretty accurate, and I'm satisfied. So let me just select this top edges. Let's go to vertices select mode. Let's just extrude it up, and now this is just the easy part. Something like that. Scale it up. Perfect. I'm just gonna add a loop cut down there to make this edge sharper. Something like that. Let's select all these, extrude it up. Just make them a little smaller and extrude. Oops. Never mind. Extrude it up again in the z-axis and bring them down. Now this edge is not that sharp, so I'm just gonna make it sharper by adding a loop cut right there. And let's add one right there as well to make this, to give this a little more definition, and I'm going to scale that up as well. Perfect. So let's just select all these vertices, and I think we are good with that. So I'm just going to press F to fill this in, and I think we are basically done with our king except for this top part. So yeah, one thing which you're going to be noticing is that the shading seems to be pretty fine everywhere except for this point. Let's see what the issue with that is. Let's just add a loop cut right there to make it a little smoother, and that's perfect. And one thing which you're going to be noticing is, well, it's not that apparent in this, but there is this weird shading on the top. You're gonna see, even if I like shade it smooth, you're gonna see that we have this weird shading. And to fix that, what we're going to be doing is that we're going to go to face select mode. We're going to be selecting this top face, and we're going to be insetting this. And once we inset that, you're going to see that the shading is going to be smooth. Now the way that works is a little too complicated for this tutorial, so I'm not going to go over that. But yeah, we are basically done with our shape of the king. And now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be making that top thing. So for that, we can just create a new cube, and let's just go to the front mode, front view. Let's scale it down, bring it up, scale it down even more. Oops. Never mind. Scale it down even more, and just position it something like that. Scale it up in the y-axis, a little bit like that. And the reason why I'm leaving some room right here is actually we don't really need to do that. So I'm just going to be selecting it and moving it up, and we do need to leave some room so that the bottom, when it rounds off the bottom, when we add the subdivision surface, it doesn't actually show. So yeah, that's something we need to be careful about. I'm just going to extrude this up, scale it down, extrude it up again, scale it up. This is just the same exact stuff that we've been doing for this tutorial, just extruding and scaling things. I hope it's not difficult. One thing which we can do here is that to make this extra part, we can just select this all, press E, S, and Shift Z, and just scale it up. E for extrude, S for scaling up, and Shift Z to lock it to the X and Y axes. Yeah, perfect. So I'm just gonna be, yeah, we have these top vertices. Oops. So with all these top vertices selected, I'm just gonna be extruding them, and I'm gonna be bringing them down. And let's do it again. This is just very basic and fun stuff actually. Although it is a little repetitive, it is pretty fun, to be honest. I usually do this with music, and it's pretty fun, to be honest. So I'm just going to go to the side view, and you're going to see that we could obviously make this totally flat from both the edges. So the way we do that is by selecting this, pressing S, X, and 0. You're going to see that it's going to align them on the x-axis. It's going to align all the points on one point. But actually I won't do that because I think this 3D look is pretty good. The only thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to be scaling it down in the x-axis to make it a little thinner. Something like that. Let's just get out of our edit mode. And I think it looks pretty good. Let's add a subdivision surface modifier because it's too sharp. And then we're going to be adding some loop cuts. Now you're going to see that it looks absolutely soft, very soft. So let's start adding some loop cuts. I'm going to add one right there. Actually, let's add them to the vertically. Let's add vertical loop cuts first to make sure that they're on the sides. Something like that and something like that. Perfect. So let's add one right here as well. Then let's add one right here. Obviously this is your own choice. You can decide whether you want it to be soft or sharp, because usually chess pieces can vary a lot in their specifics. So it's basically up to you. There are no restrictions on this. I think we're good. Yeah, so that is basically done as well. Let's just increase the segments and just shade it smooth. And let's do that thing. Let's go to turn on the normals and turn on auto smooth so that it fixes a few issues. And that is perfect. So our what do you call it? Also, by the way, I forgot to reduce the opacity, but yeah, I'm just gonna reduce it now. Yeah, so our chess pieces are basically complete, and next up we're gonna be working on the board. We're gonna be modeling the board, and after that we are going to be just setting the whole composition, and then we're gonna be adding the materials, and finally we're gonna be lighting the scene, rendering it, and finally the post-processing. So yeah, the modeling part for the chess pieces is basically complete, and yeah, congratulations for making it this far in the tutorial, and I hope you're enjoying. If you have any problem in this or any other part of this class, then be sure to start a discussion down below, and I'll be sure to help you. So yeah, I'll see you in the next part.